Hello everyone, this is Fantastic Worlds, welcome back to Lovecraft Country in the Secret World Interludes, and today we're moving on from the Scorched Desert into the City of the Sun God. Now, last time I left you here at the entrance to the Sun God, to the City of the Sun God, which of course has a huge statue of Akhenaten on the top, who's a pharaoh with tentacles coming out of his mouth, because in the Lovecraftian universe, everything has to have tentacles. In any case, this door is the one that leads to the Underworld. Now, I'll go over why I believe it to be the Underworld when we get to the other side. Hang on. Okay, so here we are over in the City of the Sun God, which you notice is a mirror image of the entrance where we came in. Now this, among other things, makes me believe this is the Underworld, because the Underworld is less a physical place than a kind of reflection of the surface world, manifested within the void that is the true Underworld. Now, as you can see, you're into what's called the Breach. The Breach being, of course, where the dimensions intersect. As you can see, the Eye of Sauron over there, hovering over the Black Pyramid. We'll get to that eventually. Right now, what we're in is a representation of the city that the Akhenaten, the real-life pharaoh, mind you, created in the middle of the desert to worship his dark gods. And as you can see, there's some of the ruins here. Now, there's going to be two distinct types of ruins. These darker, worn ones and some lighter, more colorful ones. Now, ironically, the darker, worn ones are probably original structure that has been modified by Akhenaten, as opposed to, well, being constructed outright. And if you see that shadow over there, there's always vultures hanging around, and vultures, of course, the symbol of Maat, M-A-A-T, Mayat, who is the goddess of the goddess that weighs the souls of the the dead, when they come in determines what to do with them. Now, the way she does that is she measures your heart against a feather, and the sins are what weigh your heart down. If your heart is less weightful than a feather, and you lead a blameless life, you get to move on to your version of the Underworld. However, the one in which you probably were happy to be there. However, if it's any heavier, she tells Anubis to toss your body into a maw of a giant crocodile, and it eats it. Yeah, religion can be weird. Anyways, so let's now to talk about this world, this section of the Underworld, is to talk about the Underworld's second function. The first, of course, is to deal with the souls of the dead, which you've got your own vision of how that works. I'm not even going to get into that. But the second is to hold the eldritch abominations that have no place upon the surface and would cause great harm away from others, like, for example, the Titans for the Greek mythology. But here, of course, it's the Black Pharaoh. Now, we're going to talk to the person who set up this whole system in this section of the Underworld, the Thutmose. And the thing about Thutmose is, if you pay attention to the legends, these things, yeah, you'll find out that he's in fact dead. Yeah, the structure of creating this, at the end, he had to end his own life and become its guardian. Now, according to the dialogue you have during the introduction to some of the missions, he is capable of leaving this world and interacting with it as what would be called a shade. Now, this is a term that's been translated from Greek, which means you have essentially an undead, a ghost that is solid and can interact with the real world. Can even bleed if you cut it, but it's not actually alive. And we'll be dealing with the concepts of the difference between a shade and a person. Now, it's going to get complicated and deal with some Egyptian metaphysics, but for the moment, let's just talk to the dude, shall we? He's not going to be big about talking about himself, though, if you're going to notice. Yeah, he doesn't actually talk about himself or his kids. You got to go through a complicated investigation mission or collect all the lore fragments to figure it out. It's one of the reasons why I want to have the Lore Hunter series, and I'm only $3 away from unlocking it in the Gumroad payment system. So if we reach that goal, yes, I will. If you notice the upper left, I've got the 1,000 Aurum, oh my god, that took forever to ground, to get a second character so I can go back and get all of the lore fragments in an organized fashion and bring them to you. But again, that's a stretch goal. So at the moment, what we're dealing with is the Interlude. That's going to be dealing lightly with the Sentinels and their part in creating this version of the Underworld. But first, let's get the message of Akhenaten from the man who was there.
He was not always a madman, you know. Many of us had high hopes for the boy. We thought he would make a fine king, a just king. But early on, we could see that something was wrong. He was obsessed with changing everything, changing our entire way of life.
Now, that's actually a thing. Oops, hold on. There we go. I figured out how to do that yesterday. Yeah, Akhenaten's a real person. He is a pharaoh. I couldn't give you the exact dates, unfortunately, but he comes just before Tutankhamun, who's his son. And he took this large, complex pantheon of gods that had been well established by the merging of cultures within the Nile Basin by force or by marriage, and decided, nope, we're going to chuck the whole thing. And the entire bureaucracy, the priesthood bureaucracy running the country, chuck that too. We're going to worship a single sun god, and we're going to just have us. And it went over like a ton of bricks. Now, in the real world, there was probably no eldritch abominations involved. You could tell. But in this case, and he was just a greedy bastard wanting to essentially rewrite the entire culture around him because he was a raging narcissist who decided to erase history. Not going to make any current parallels. And here, however, he's kind of a worshiper of the dark gods, which, kind of is a bad thing. Okay.
Many claimed I fought him because I lost power when Amun was abolished as god.
As I noticed.
That is not right. I fought him because he brought too much change too quick.
Okay, I'm going to measure that one. In the real world, the priestly structure did move against Akhenaten because they wanted to maintain their own power, but Akhenaten was sucked at ruling his country. It literally started going down the toilet. The mummy took over because he was only obsessed with his cultural changes as opposed to maintaining a nation state. Again, not going to make any comments about how that might apply to the real world at the moment.
He became more and more obsessed, and the entire kingdom suffered. There was drought, hunger, and disease. Our people were dying, yet he would not relent. Even his wife, Nefertiti, could not bring him back. He was lost to the whispers, and that's why we had to fight.
Yeah, again, no parallels. Anyways, let's talk to Khalid. Now, if you don't remember Khalid, way back when, he's the pseudo Aaron / Moses / Gandalf character that I did back in the episode 37, not exactly sure, called Historical Revisionism. Let's see what he thinks about him, because these two would be contemporaries.
There are not many out there who know about this place. Only one, as far as I know. Well, up until a few weeks ago at least. He is a man who goes by many names, and I suspect you must have met him out there. Long white beard. He carries a staff.
Yeah, the wizard. Just to let you know, Khalid was kind of an odd character, I swear. It's like they created this really awesome character and then mention him once in the main plot and then have 2 side missions. I honestly don't even know why they bothered. I mean, seriously. I would have made him a lot more interesting. Seriously. I mean, there's also the fact that you could theoretically combine Khalid and Thutmose here. You really could. They could be the same character, easily enough, being able to move between 2 worlds. Sometimes when you're writing, you have to condense characters, but I understand you can't have 2, mission providers in a different same mission provider in 2 locations.
Listen to what he says. He is a wise man, and a man who has suffered more than most for what he believes in. I hope he will one day be rewarded for his actions.
It's the thing about good, you don't get rewarded that often. Anyway, so let's talk about the Temple City here. Now, he's going to mention 2 places. One is an actual historical place that he created in the middle of the desert in an attempt to create a court away from the priesthood. This one is the fictional one in this storyline.
This place was only built towards the end of Akhenaten's reign, even after he moved his capital to Amarna.
That was the one I was mentioning.
It's ironic that a man who claims to worship the sun sought his god deep inside the earth.
Well, he wasn't terribly sane.
He found something here, I'm sure. Something that drove him even deeper into madness. Something older than us. Older than even Egypt herself. No good has ever come from here, and none ever will.
Entirely possible. Anyways, yeah, as you can see, this moody, dark place with no true sunlight and filled with the spirits of dead, yeah, I'm calling it the Underworld. And like the Underworld, it can be difficult to get around it. As you can see from the main map, we have structures that were drawn from the surface that are just randomly positioned amongst these horrific ridges, and the anima wells are all over the place, and it's difficult enough to get around. Now, I'm going to have to parse this into 2 specific episodes. This episode is going to be dealing with the Sentinels and their backstory. Now, I'm going to go over the Sentinels by order, starting from the top, from the eldest down, and then do a recap of what I think they're up to. Now, in the moment, that's probably going to have to be Utmos, I think. I think he's the first one. You notice that he's also... Well, I'll deal with geography in a second here. Hang on, there's going to be a lot of teleporting around. Now, I think actually better off going this way. Okay, so here we are over at the first and eldest of the Sentinels, the Thutmose, the priest of Horus, son of the sun god, which, kind of gets a little weird when we're fighting also evil sun gods. I mean, seriously, it's like a solar civil war. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, I decided to bring my Shem. I wouldn't bring any living pets here. This one's a stone one. I figure he fits in with the decor. Anyways, and as you can see, by the way, I forgot to mention one of the most obvious tells us in the underworld. You hear the voices of the damned screaming on the wind. It's kind of a thing. Any case, so yeah, obviously he's encased in a giant statue made of rod. Now the thing is, when we went back to episode Corporate Malfeasance, 57 I think, I'm not sure, we saw a scan of one of them, and that thing in there is packed with third age technology, making it essentially a giant computer structure holding a consciousness, essentially a techno-magical version of an AI, artificial intelligence, or SI. I prefer to call it synthetic intelligence. It's kind of artificial, kind of. Yeah, one day we're actually going to produce life within a test tube or a silicon system, and then we're going to have to talk seriously about the concept of sentient rights then. But in the meantime, now, one of the reasons you're going to notice something odd when we get to the Sentinels. Normally, I will go through each character and exhaust their dialogue, but there is none. Thutmose doesn't have the ability to interact with you. He's got this communication system that allows him to interact with his family members, but he doesn't interact with you except outside the missions. Oh, thank God it's much quieter in here. Kind of like being in this section. So, however, the picture's awful. To deal with that, I guess. Anyways, so yeah, so the deal is with this is that I don't believe... Oh, I didn't even realize I had claws on the other end of these things. I don't actually believe that that's a soul inside there. Now, hear me out. This is going to be dealing with the, like I said, Egyptian spiritualities. There's a practitioner of neo-paganism with Egyptian... forgive me. Anyways, we're dealing with the concept that the Egyptians believe there are multiple parts of a person's soul. There's the Ka, the immortal part that essentially exists eternally outside of time and space and manifests within our world as the Ba, essentially our incarnations. In other words, you are the Ba of your Ka. Your Ka exists outside of time, but it interacts with the real world and learns from it by manifesting as a living being in this time. Now, this can be a way you can look at the concept of reincarnation in multiple cultures as the difference between the deep self and the waking self. I believe that's how Miriam Simos put it. Yeah, I'm kind of digging deep on the occultism here. And there's the physical body, which, of course, once you're done with it, drops to the earth and turns back to dirt. But the thing is about that is that I believe that we're dealing with the fact that what's inside these Sentinels isn't the Ka, obviously, because the Ka does not exist in the physical world. It is the mind of the Ba, the human mind, which essentially is like a computer program being stored in the biomatrix of our brain. And now what Thutmose did to his children was transfer this consciousness in. Now, this is one of the reasons why he only comes so far and why he promises the same thing over and over to his children. If you do the introduction of the episodes, he does promise to his kids, that to his two youngest, that someday they'll go out and see things, and they constantly believe him. They never lose focus. That's because they are the copy of an intelligence, not the intelligence itself, and they do not evolve. Like a wraith, like a shade, they do not evolve. They cannot go any further because that requires a soul to be able to evolve and grow. So they are literally captured at the moment of death, preserved, and when they're not interacting with anybody, specifically due to the purpose that they are programmed to, they simply aren't there. They have no motivation to speak or act or do anything. And this is why he only comes every once in a while. When he does, he has the exact same arguments over and over again because they never change. That's the nature of, I suppose, undeath in this way. Might be a beneficial form of undeath, but it's undeath. These people should have passed on 4,000 years ago. In any case, you may notice that Raboy here, Thutmose, is now staring down this section here. Now this is the procession, the gauntlet, that leads to the Black Pyramid. Now I'm going to take it from the top here because you get the better view. But you can see right now that they have the statues of Anubis and... We'll get there in a moment. I guess it's Anubis twice. Anyways, Anubis, Lord of the Dead. Now, the thing is, Akheton would not work with Anubis. Remember, Akheton was a monotheist that worshipped a single sun god called Aton. Aton? Sorry, I can't pronounce it. Rather than the actual pantheon, which would include Anubis, which means that Anubis isn't here protecting him, he's protecting everybody else from the Black Pharaoh. And as you notice, there's not a lot of monsters down there. There's a single one down there. But once you get past the Guardians here, oh my god, does it get crowded. Now, like I said, these worn structures are probably sections of the city that were taken into the underworld. And then, oh my god, you gotta be kidding me. Hang on, I might get that. In the underworld that were drawn into this world to form Akheton's prison. Hang on a second. See if I can get over there. Be careful. Might even switch back to, walking. Anyways, let's see if we can do this. Dude, don't get in my way. Anyways, and as you can see down here, there's kind of a staring contest going on. There's a direct line from the statue right there, I don't know if you can see it, all the way to the entrance of the Black Pharaoh with a giant eye, which means that basically you've got Thutmose, the Lord... Oh, this is not the time. Thutmose, the Lord of the Hunt, the one who defeats Set the one who defeats Set, who killed his father, essentially being represented by Thutmose staring directly at the Black Pharaoh. Now remember, mysticism, myth, religion, all that kind of deals with the concept of narrative, which means that it is empowered by narrative. Hey, I've almost got these done. Oh no, the front half's looking bad. Anyways, so what's happening right now is that this narrative, they're essentially empowering Ra's narrative as being a guardian over Set's evil, as now being over Akheton's evil, the Black Pharaoh. Now, as you can see, the willpower that's going in between these two, with Thutmose attempting to keep him in and the Black Pharaoh trying to keep him out, has literally been ripping apart the underworld's reality. So it's now reverting back into the hellish-like concept it was originally. Remember, the underworld is defined by the power within it. In other words, it creates the reality. So in this case, these two have been creating through their own struggle kind of a thing. Now, as you can see, these structures here have Akheton statues and such, but they're part of the original architecture. Well, I shouldn't have jumped down here. Oh, there we go. So they are essentially... Can I get back here without falling? Let's find out. They are essentially kind of being created by the conflict between the two. Sorry, I probably should have been more careful. He creates Anubis on the outside, but on the out is being created by the Sentinels, while on the inside, this undead created hell with the structures being slowly twisted into becoming worshipers' halls for him is also happening. But as you notice, the structures aren't stable. Reality is... Whoa! Almost fell into there. That would have been bad. Why do I have a dead scarab here? Honestly, I don't know. It's probably something I don't know about. Anyways, I think I'm over this direction. But the thing is that's hilarious about this... Oh, hi. Yeah, that demonstrates. If you remember the First of the Fallen series I did here, kind of like the 3 episodes back-to-back about the... This is also the prison of the Nameless. Now, the Nameless was originally created as the first jinn by God, but refused its name. Okay, finally, Solomon tried to name it. This is where things get a little weird. Before Adam, there was Solomon, essentially, who was considered to be the first magician, the first, but that's just really a continuation. In other words, Solomon was a real king. They established his name onto some other prior deity figure who did the naming of beasts. In other words, when things were created, he gave them a name. The name in mysticism is your purpose, okay? Thing is, the Nameless, as the first of the jinn, rejected their purpose, essentially falling, which is why I call him the Fallen, from the grace given to him by his creator God's representative, Adam/Solomon. Because, yeah, there is another version where Adam's the one who doesn't do the naming here. And he's essentially imprisoned inside Third Age technology, later by Solomon. I'm so sorry. It's not Solomon, it's Adam. I was wrong. I apologize. Please forgive me on this regard. Yes, it's Solomon who imprisoned him. It's Adam who would have named him. But then, of course, that's mythology, so we don't actually know what really happened here. He can't be controlled, we know that. He doesn't have his name, which essentially, in Jinn lore, if you know the true name of a spirit, you can command it. That's how Solomon commanded the Jinn in real-life mythology, if that's actually a term, to serve him. In fact, there's this whole shtick I was reading about Solomon, it's hilarious, where he would summon demons just to get water from 1,000 miles away at the top of a mountain, bring spring water to him to water his garden every day because he could. I mean, there's fucking privilege for you. And he swore that it was better for his flowers. Now, this is really kind of strange, as you realize is that he's doing all these things with Jinn and such that probably could have done some civil services with a dam. I mean, if you got the ability to remove water, you don't even fucking need an aqueduct. But anyways, yeah, that's an entire set over there with the mazes and such to protect the first of the Fallen from being released, and which is what we've done already in the mission stream. Anyways, oh, knock it off. Anyways, I'm going to deal with areas that are close to the Black Pyramid in the second set. In the meantime, I'm going to port us over. I'm just going to check to see if I'm missing anything. I mean, the thing is, those little lore nuggets are always fun pixel hunt. Anyways, I'm going to pop over to number 2, the eldest daughter of the Atmos and her representation. Hang on. Okay, so let's pop over to the eldest daughter, second in age, dealing with the children of Patmos that became the Sentinels, essentially having their minds downloaded in by blood ritual. Magic tech can be kind of weird. But yeah, this is her statue over here in the north end. Now, the thing is, she's also staring directly at the eye over there. You can notice she's right there, which means that she's the second one to be doing so, and that means her will is currently holding in. But again, no way to interact with her. So, yeah, one of the things hang on, let me duck in here where it's quieter. Okay, a little quieter. One of the things I forgot to do before is to deal with what the legends say, because this was where you get a lot of the information dealing with this. 18th century dies in Visor. Yeah, we'll deal with Patmos in a second, but Thutmose. He's the eldest of 7, new-fledged adult, is short, strong, dutiful, second parent to your siblings in the shadow life. You accept your fate immediately. The others look to you for your guidance. You choose the aspect of Horus, the mighty sky god, who scythes Aten's corrupting rumors away. In other words, he's immune to Aten's trying to corrupt him. But you also notice up here, time passes, first in years and then the centuries. The body of the children wither to dust. The siblings remain in their young in mind and spirit. Remember, like I said, they don't age. They're just a copy of their mind. In their new role, they take on the aspects of a patron god. Now, odds are, like I said before during my main play, that all of them were actually dedicated to a priesthood when they were young, with their father was essentially a vizier. He was also royalty. Royalty often, remember, I told you the priesthood was the bureaucracy, correct? In order to understand how to rule a kingdom, the kids come up during the bureaucracy. Now, the problem is when someone like Akheton comes to the throne, he has no actual concept of how a bureaucracy works and believes that it's simply he gives an order and the empire does it, and there's magic occurs between the two. They're gonna kind of fail a lot. Once you know actually the limitations of the system you're dealing with by actually being part of it, coming up through the ranks, you know what the hell you're doing. But in any case, only really Nefertiti and Thutmose did so. Now, there's a thing, if you didn't notice in what he said, Akheton's wife was called Nefertiti. Now, we don't know. I'm going to guess that given the fact that drama tends to condense characters into the smallest number usually, that Nefertiti is the wife of Akheton. It's not mentioned anywhere except that one place that if you talk to that guy about it and find about it, yeah, the woman whose mind is downloaded into the construct we're currently in at the moment, yeah, she was the wife of Akheton. Eldest daughter, you see your family's duty in the absolute terms of your chosen patron's Mat, principality of justice and balance. Like we mentioned before, you oppose chaos, violence, and the lies of Aton. Others think you're uncaring and distant, your sisters at times insufferable, but your incorrigible moral high ground chains of black fear outside his cold sarcophagus. As the goddess, she is constantly judging him as unworthy, unwilling to move on. So in other words, again, the two elders seem to be doing a lot of the work here, carrying a lot of the load. But we're going to have to get to the rest of them now. Let's see. Next one, the Monty Month. Oh yeah, the whiner. We'll deal with her in a second. Hang on. Okay, so here we are over at, let me get the name here. Pronunciation's going to be horrible. Monty Morialil. Monty Morialil? Anyways, she's actually taken the form of a deity you're probably not aware of, Meretz Tinsiker. The thing is, Meretz Seeker, who is a cobra goddess. Now, she's, as it points out, quiet, pensive, melancholic, in other words, a whiner. Disagreed with her tragic destiny because she already had a husband and family of her own, but because of the blood relations, connections required to create this, she had to be, well, harvested for her ba. She cursed your bit of fate, walked it nonetheless, and her patron met Meritic Seeger, which allows you to keep the city hidden from the world's eye. You are lovely, but your love is lovely, but as your path to corruption, your regret of funnel, Akaton pours his scorpion venom words down. Your protection and conviction waver, the world eye sees. Alright, Merisugers is a local deity that around the Valley of the Kings that was essentially the artisan of, how do I put this? She was the patron of the dead in the fashion that she protected them and their remains from the earth, therefore making her the patron of the people who make tombs. So, like I said, not one of the bigger gods you probably heard of, getting to Osiris, but definitely one with a, as you say, purpose to her. And again, she's got nothing to say. But interesting that sheer job is to keep the necropolis silent. But if you look over here where the necropolis actually is, because that is the goddess's messenger's name of it, it's kind of pretty lively. Yeah, it's filled with ghosts, because it's pointed out, her back is to the pyramid. She's also close to it, but the thing is, unlike the other two who have the will and conviction to hold it in, the other 5 have to look away from Akaton because he'll corrupt them, because they don't have that will, and frankly, it's not working with her. She gets depressed by the fact that she's stuck inside a giant thing and there's actually no end in sight to her misery, except for the fact that there is an end in sight because, as I mentioned to more, this is Ragnarok, in which the old gods die and the new gods, like the bees, like me, are going to come to take over their roles and positions. By destroying Akaton, I remove their roles, and I'm thinking in the storyline, what happens afterwards is simply they're shut down. They don't need Akaton's dead. They erase themselves. If there was any spiritual essence actually located in the being, then it would be removed to the underworld. Otherwise, the minds just are erased. It's kind of a sad way to look at it sometimes, but it depends on how you think about the underworld. I don't think our minds survive, really. I think what happens is that everything that we are gets taken back into the Ka and then reborn. But I can't tell you if there's any certainty on that one. Okay, anyways, heading over to the next one. Okay, so here we are over at, well, let me get the name right. Sorry, I gotta double check these things. I cannot pronounce Egyptian. Heminutier, young lady froze at the amber of time. Your will is the strongest. You played with the rough boys, confrontational, impulsive, and a better warrior than most men. Well, okay, I'm not a man, so you fought alongside the Mari resistance, the first of the young warriors. It was a bloody war, your best time of your life. Poor Heminutier, daughter of Dionysus, and you loathe the static state. Dynamics is a physics term that means movement. You kept the responsibility, resent the passivity, long enjoying the fray. Your patron is Sekhmet, the lioness, and that's really appropriate. If you know your Egyptian mythology, forgive me for the splaining here, but Sekhmet, God is created, I mentioned this before, God is created by Osiris to punish the transgressions of mankind, only put a little too much oomph into it, and ended up like going for everybody, because technically you could say that every person alive is transgressed in some minor way. When Osiris told her to chill, she kind of threatened Osiris. So yeah, to calm her down, they got a huge bunch of beer, colored it look like blood. She drank it, passed out. Osiris kind of removed a little bit of her inner fire, and she became a more stable goddess of warfare and healing. However, the entity inside is really, really a lot more like the early version, because she desperately wants to go out and kill him. And you notice that glow is the way she does it. She gets you, essentially, to replicate the process that created your body. That's what the whole mission is. You bring it over to the anima well, and she uses the same thing that was used on us. Remember, this isn't flesh. Our flesh was burned off when we were chosen. It's an anima constructed body. They construct her one. And the problem is, we've got a direct connection to Gaia through the bee. She does not. All she can do is swing a sword. We can set things on fire. So obviously she was kind of less than useless on that mission. I mean, I get it. I understand. She wants to do some killing, but she's out of her league at this point in the game. Like I noticed, she's an older god. She's dying and fading, and we are rising. So essentially we're taking, if it were to come down to the direct translation, my guessing a hipster dude would fit taking her role, because I hate to say this, subtle is not something he does. Now here's the weird part. Okay, the other two were staring directly at the eye, like that. I can't pronounce her name. The third one, sibling, had her back to it to avoid being corrupted, and Hementenai is just staring off into the distance. Well, frankly, it's appropriate. Anyways, heading over to the next one. Here we are at Mont Nefret, which of course is similar to Nefertiti as a name, which I suppose is common to the female, I hope. Now this one, you notice that she's facing away from the eye, which again is to avoid being corrupted by it, because she is the age of 14. Look at this little detail they have here. Again, no interaction. Again, quieter here to talk. Anyways, so the deal is with her is that, according to her legend, she's 14 years old and was an adventurous daughter who cared for country and duty but chafed to see more of the world, but she's not going to be able to do. Trapped at 14, she's one of the ones that her father brings information about, but if you notice something else, his patron is Satis, the fertility of the Nile. Now, this is kind of important. Quick side note about history. In the Nile, Egypt's fertility is determined upon the river Nile. It's a desert. It floods every spring, and when it retracts, it brings the nutrients to the soil. So every time they flood, you plant afterwards. And then you kind of have to keep this cycle going. So they have a goddess, Satis, who represents the fertility of the Nile, whom they sacrifice to in order to be able to keep things going. But as you notice, Ataton stirs, and the corruption spreads faster. Plants withers, and you cry dry tears. In other words, she's losing power because Ataton is rewriting reality to make the rivers black with filth, as you can see down there. In other words, again, essentially, the underworld is determined by the will that creates it, and Akatan's will is increasing to the point where he's been to break down the barriers that kept other beings away. Let's see, I think, is that Huey over there? Is he next? Hang on a second. Who is next after this? Sorry. Sometimes it's going to be a little hard to get. T the Younger, Mentonai, Montegant. Nefertiti the Younger? Okay, two sisters, same name. Kind of weird. Okay, hang on for a sec. Okay, so here we're dealing with Nefertiti the Younger, who obviously is not Nefertiti the Elder, who was the wife of Akhenaten, but her younger daughter with the same name, and taking the form of Bast, which is both the protector of animals and the creature of joy. You'll also notice that she's facing away from Akhenaten. You also notice that she's kind of in the middle of all this mess. That's one of the primary structures that was reconstructed, and again, we'll go over that in the next session, because I'm just going to concentrate on the Sentinels in this one. Yeah, direct route down there. She's kind of been surrounded here, and there's actually cultists within 60 feet of her over there. So yeah, she's not doing well. And she only has a single mission. So Nefertiti the Younger is kind of a Phytha, but she's only, as according to the lore, 10 years old, I believe. Yep. Youngest daughter, namesake of the oldest, 10 years of age. You do not remember much before the revolt. It's ironic that the thing is they don't remember being human that much. It probably affects them the least when they get this. Sweet innocent, you do not fully grasp the past or your grim task. You are happy to be forever with your family. Nefertiti the deity, most beloved. The cat goddess. You love animals protected from the poison and madness of the pyramid. So, thing is, there aren't a lot of animals left out there. Though, yeah, she is kind of losing power. And of course, Hoy, the last one. We'll get to him in a moment. And let me pop over there. I think he's where? Is that him? Anyways, that's him. Hang on. About the angle on this one, but yeah, this is the last one. Huey, the youngest, the boy child, and the patron of Anubis, Lord of the Dead. Interesting choice for the youngest, by the way, considering Anubis is kind of really important in the underworld. That maybe they stuck the youngest in so there'd be less of a dissonance. But in any case, you may notice also he has this falcon here, a symbol of Horus, which represents closeness to his larger brother, I think. In any case, yeah, according to the legends, let's see. Hoy, call your name, youngest son and sibling. Hoy the lonely, poor, sweet, isolated by youth, a few memories of the flesh and the quick. In the millennia, you have learned more than any living scholar, but your mind still seals the word as a child. Right. He can learn any amount of information he wants. After all, the computer would have memory banks, but his personality will never change from 10 years old, which is why he's always high excited to see his father, despite the father reneging on making him out of there. You descend on the guidance of your father. To depend, too often your siblings discount you from discussions and decisions, saying for Montemiya, who wears the mask of mother for you. Your patron is Anubis, jackal-headed, speaks to the dead and weighs their hearts. Now, as you can see, if you look at the map, you get a rough idea that they do form a bit of a circle, but the irony is they're not actually equally around the circle. You'd figure that they would put the pyramid here and then be around there, but my guess is the changing geography of the underworld by will has kind of distorted things. And as you can see, this is one of the odd structures I was going to point out. You'll notice that most of them are actually kind of worn and old, of the older construction, but this one appears to be new, has Akaton's symbol on it, and really doesn't have a purpose. I mean, seriously, most temples at least are like tombs and such. This just kind of is. But it makes me actually kind of wonder how much of this was reflected in what was in the real world and how much is his vanity. And again, you've got cultists everywhere around this poor kid, which means his power level, the youngest ones, are going first. Obviously, the ones around Horus is the clearest and does have council representations. We'll go over why the council's here next episode. Pardon me, sorry about that. But yeah, so those are the Sentinels. And as I said, essentially the wraiths of 8 members of a family who dedicated their lives to defeating Akaton while he was alive and are holding in place after he is dead. Now the thing is, at this point in time, the barrier has fallen, probably due to the metaphysical events that have occurred post-Tokyo invasion, which broken the dimensional barriers, and this section of Underworld is accessed by a vast majority of bad operators, ranging from Jinn to elementals to cultists to demons, and we will deal with all of those in the next component. I'm dealing with, shall we say, the forces of the Black Pharaoh and his minions, as well as the one renegade and my man Azir and what he has to say about the whole situation. So, until next time, this is Fantastic World saying farewell from the Secret Rule Interludes. And if you like this, like, share, subscribe, and if you really like it, there's links down to the Gumroad below. If you like the Interlude series, and as I noticed, the lore that provides the background on them, and like I said, only $3 away from the goal to start the Lore Hunter series, in which the second character will go around hunting all the lore, as well as showing you where the locations are, so you can get it for yourself if you want. Kind of a reference to the back to the community that has provided me with so much. I know. And in any case, go ahead. $1 helps get us to that goal. $2 gives you early access, and of course, I'll see you next time.
You will see the dawning of a new age. To be a monarch or a beggar. To lose everything or to become a god. To stand with us or against us. The choice is yours.